Hi there, friends. Thanks for clicking on this video. This is the first of two videos on the setup and install of the batteries that you see back there. It was done about 4 weeks ago, so I've now had a chance to use the system for about 4 weeks. Very happy with it. So first phase is going to be the teardown of the old setup and then setting up the new batteries in there. And then phase two, the second video that I'll be dropping, is going to be all about how to set up the BMS as well as the tools and the techniques involved in doing all that. So without further ado, here we go. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is just start turning off all of my loads. So first off, on the front panel, I've turned off my lighting. This is already off. Next thing I have to do is, there's a procedure to follow to turn off the charge controller. You first start by turning off your solar input, and that is the wires leading to the solar panels outside. That's what this switch does. You can see here that this light indicates that we no longer have solar charging. And now all I have to do is turn off the charge controller itself with that switch. And that's what's to do. Next, I'm going to start removing the covers from the bus bars. And it's going to be time to start disconnecting items from the battery pack and afterwards the bus bars. So in order to get things out of the way, I can just pull off this switch. I like these switches. Let's see, can you see that? I'll show you in a zoom in later when we reassemble, but these have little removable panels that you can insert and configure to your liking so that you can direct the wire in whichever direction you like. And there's a little insulating separator between the two so that they cannot easily ground. However, be careful when you're using a wrench. It is easy to cross over and touch the two leads. So if you're live, you might be zapping your wrench or your hand. Right, so I've just popped that off to get it out of the way and loosely out of the road. We're going to do the same thing with this one. And now all of the loads have been turned off. And the next step is to disconnect the battery pack from the rest of the circuits. So let's do that next. All right, so the batteries are fully disconnected. I've got the old bus bars off. I'm just going to put those off to the side. And we're going to move these batteries out of the way. So, in case any of you are curious, this is the kind of battery that I've got. This is a 3.2 volt lithium iron phosphate cell. It has a rated capacity of 280 amp hours, which is a fair bit. And we have a voltage of 3.29 volts as standard. And I'm just going to be taking these apart. I'm not sure what I'll do with them. I may reuse them, put them in a portable pack. A couple of different things that I have ideas for. So we're just going to pull these out of the way. I'm going to take apart the rest of these bus bars, get them out of the way. Same as this wiring, get that out of the way. And then it's going to be time next to move those other batteries into place. Just going to slide those below, get them out of the way for now. BMS can go away. Now, a quick note about BMSs. This is a pretty decent one. It's worked well for me since I installed it. Previous to this, I had a knockoff that came with all of the equipment in the cabin, and I installed it. Well, it failed on me after about 3 months of use. And so I ended up having to run this battery pack without a BMS for a while, and that, of course, didn't contribute to its longevity, I'm sure. So that's why I'm not going to reintegrate those batteries back into the overall solution. I'm just going to put them off to the side. I have a spare for this, just in case, and you should probably have spares for your BMSs as well if you rely on your power and it's your sole source of power. All right, let's move along. I'm going to finish pulling these apart, and I got to take these out, these bus bars. Right, so I'm just going to put some of these washers back on. The other bus bar. Quickly going to put the fasteners back on, the locking washers, lock washers. Because I'm notorious for losing things if they're not attached to where they should be. Put these on right now. It's going to be harder for me to lose them. Not impossible, just harder. All right. Now, where's that drill gun off to? There it is. So why am I upgrading the bus bars? Because while these are great, and they come with a nice integrated cover, these are the Blue Sea Systems brand. Here, try and light that up for you. There it is, Blue Sea Systems. This one here is only rated for 100 amps. And in order to support the inverter charger that I have below, I'm going to be upgrading it to the next size that they have that is over 300 amps, which is this 600 amp. So there's a bit of a massive size difference between these two, don't you think? Yes, massive, massive, massive. So that's all in order to be able to handle larger workloads, such as providing inverting and charging capabilities all at the same time. I'm just going to continue on taking these apart. We're almost done. There we are. Of course, I reuse screws, being the frugal gunny. And these will get to be reused on another smaller project at some point. Right, what's the next phase? Let's do some cleanup. Clean some of these things out of here. So while I am picking up my stuff here, just a little note about wiring and some of the things that you need to consider when you're wiring. Wiring is not something I like to rush. I'm used to having to wire much more complex things than what we're looking at here. I used to wire servers and desktop computers, custom desktops that I hand built for customers to order to their specifications, to their needs. And some of these systems had dozens and dozens of things inside that needed to all be connected. Dozens of hard drives, controllers, various different things. Back in the days of the servers, you had all these crazy ribbon cables. So that's where I learned to have a lot of patience when doing wiring. I recommend you never rush wiring. If you're not sure, if you're confused, take a moment. Go back to the basics and look at what you're doing. If you have to, trace your steps. I will sometimes do that. If something doesn't work, I methodically work my way back. But I try not to make mistakes, so if I have to, I take time to take a good look at what I'm working on and make sure that I'm doing it correctly. So don't be in a rush is my best advice I can give you when doing wiring. Don't be in a rush. Okay, let's quickly take a brief look and see whether or not I can reuse these leads. So I can reuse those leads. No problem there. That's great. All the other main wiring I can use won't be an issue, so we're going to do that in a little bit. So next I've got to deal with this piece here. I noticed it was a little warm. This is the battery tray cable that came with the solar kit for the 400 watt 40 amp kit that I had originally started with. Now I suspect this wire is not quite adequate for handling the kind of charge that this Rover 100 amp can produce, because I just noticed it was a little warm earlier when we were pushing about 40 to 50 amps to the batteries, and I don't like that. So I'm going to be upgrading this lead as well, seeing as I'm taking this apart anyway. We're going to upgrade that to 4 gauge, 4 AWG, and I have a whole pile of that stuff to work with. So all that's left here that's somewhat in the way is this lead, which goes to my LED lighting. So this is my LED lighting controller right here. That's an infrared sensor, so I had a little remote, and this runs my string of lights. So I'm gonna kind of leave that dangling here because it's not going to be in the way while I'm laying down my batteries. I'm going to start by laying down my batteries here, and then we're gonna probably gonna go ahead and retape them while I'm here. And I'll talk to you all about that while I'm doing that bit. So let's go ahead and do this. So I recently learned that when you're working on building your own battery pack, such as I am here with lithium cells, it is a good idea, a best practice if you like, to support the batteries with some form of board so that they keep their shape. And I'm going to show you why that's important in a very short moment. So what I'm doing now is I'm just cutting the tape off my new batteries, which are sitting off here to the side off camera. I'm cutting these boards out. We're going to reuse them. And the idea behind this is that these batteries from the factory, they come nice and square. So what kind of batteries are these? These are similar to what I had before. These are Eve batteries. They are Eve batteries, and they are imported by Ducan Power. You got me. Anyway, this is probably the best deal on lithium batteries because the folks who make this actually have quite a bit of control over lithium supply in the world. So if you want lithium out there, it's going to be hard to find it at a cheaper price than this. Now, you can find American-made and Canadian-produced lithium batteries. I just haven't found any stock on any of them anywhere. So I had to bring these from overseas. All right, now taking a look at these, you see how nice and square they are? See how nice and square they are? Beautiful, right? Well, I recently found out, sort of the hard way, that if these are unsupported, if you leave them just as is, when you are charging them, they can have a tendency to change shape. And here I'm going to demonstrate what happened with one of these. So this happened in particular when I didn't have the BMS running on this battery pack, and I don't know if it will translate well to the camera, but there is quite a bulge here on the side of this cell. And that apparently is a somewhat normal thing if you leave the battery cell unsupported. So the good practice, as you saw in my earlier video, is to actually press plywood against these batteries or some other non-conductive surface, hopefully, so that you're supporting the panels of the battery pack. And that's what I'm going to be doing here. So I'm just shuffling over my batteries. While I am doing so, I'm reorienting them so that I can have a series connection. So right now they are set up for parallel. I want them to be connected in series. So what's the difference? When you're connecting batteries in parallel, you're connecting the positives to the positives. It's not what I'm doing here, because I don't want 3.6 volts or 3.3 volts, which is what this gives me. I want a 12 volt system. So you're going to wire these positive to negative. And so by wiring this positive to negative, I'm now going to have a 6.4 volt cell. And as I add the others in series, which is what we're doing next, I just want you to imagine, because you're going to see this happen live before your eyes. So in this case, again, positive to negative. So if I go positive to negative here, I'm at 6.4 volts. Positive to negative here, we now add another 3.2 volts. That puts us at 9.6 volts. And then when we add one more cell, like so, we now get 13.2 volts, which is basically what this particular pack will give you when it's fully charged. So we would still run this in series, positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to negative. And that's how you get a full 12 volts. The next battery pack, I'm going to do the same thing to it, run it in series, but then we're going to connect them in parallel to the bus bars that we're going to be relocating. So I'm now going to slide these over. And it's time to wash, rinse, repeat. So I'm going to try to keep my positive lead closer to where the positive bus bar is going to be, and the negative leads closer to where the negative bus bar is going to be. And why is that? They say it's a good strategy to make sure that you are designing your system so as to have the shortest runs possible. The shortest runs possible ensures that you are wasting less current getting to where you need to deliver it. And that's the idea, because there is such a thing as attenuation. Attenuation is what happens when over distance you start to lose signal and or power. Just relocating all of these to their new location, their new spot in life. So you can see here, this switch is kind of in my way. I'm definitely going to need to relocate that one as well. All I'm doing now is lining up my batteries, because the next step is going to be to perform some battery bondage. We're going to bind these batteries together with the plywood you saw me working with in the last video, perhaps. I'm going to be using this little side here. Let's get the long pieces in place first. There's the first long piece. And so the idea here isn't to compress the batteries. You just want to hold their shape. So you don't need to, torque this down in any way with, you know, for example, cargo straps or anything like that. You don't want to do that. You don't want to crush your batteries. But you are interested in supporting the battery as much as possible. So in the last video on preparing these batteries for use in circuit here, you might have seen that I used some duct tape, and it's pretty cheap stuff, and it doesn't really hold all that well. So I'm going to break out the expensive stuff for this particular application. And this is the expensive stuff, Gorilla Tape. I know I'm not sponsored or anything. I don't have enough viewers for that yet, but I do use their product quite a bit. They do the job for me. So what's interesting is that these batteries are exactly the width of my shelf, and I don't have any other plywood to currently make this wider. So I'm just going to have to live with what I've got for now and deal with it. So what I'm going to do is temporarily place these edge pieces with some cheap tape. Tape. It's just to hold the board in place while I wrap it in the second phase with the Gorilla Tape. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And again, the idea isn't to torque these batteries into shape or anything like that. It's simply to support the batteries through their form so that they don't develop bulges as they charge, which is known to occur. Pro tip out there for those of you who are duct tape and aficionados. When I was wearing green, we used to call this stuff gun tape. It seemed the glue was a little stronger, closer to what you have today in Gorilla Tape. But hey, that's how it is. All right, so now my support panels are in place. What I'm going to do now is give them a good wrap with my Gorilla Tape. Of course, if you pull too hard on your tape, you're going to fray it, and you're going to make handy dandy strips, which is fun when you want thin pieces, but it's not quite what I'm interested in right now. So there we go. Now I got to start this process. I think I'm going to go with the long back side first, because it's probably going to be the most challenging one to deal with. So I really like this Gorilla Tape stuff because it's pretty tacky in a good way. Even against surfaces like plywood, which normally you would not expect to stick well to any kind of tape. end up having to go buy another roll before long. It's all right. This stuff is well worth it. Top part is done. Let's see if we can get enough tape out of this to do the bottom. This stuff sticks so well, almost too well. It's wanting to make a mess of things for me here, but that's all right. That's all right. I'll work with what I've got. Don't worry about straightening that out and doing another wrap on it later. It doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to support the batteries. In my mind, pretty is secondary to functional. That's why I'm the frugal guy. And not the fabulous backwoodsman. Okay, just enough to tape the top and bottom. I won't have enough to do a wrap around the center, and that's okay. Just the plywood shape should support that well enough. The most important thing is the batteries now hold their own shape without a difficulty. All right. So the batteries are now in place. Next step is going to be to connect the bus bars so that we have two different batteries out of these. Then I'm going to need to set up the bus bars. So this is another kind of bus bar, two kinds of bus bars. Bus bars that you use to interconnect batteries, and of course bus bars to interconnect circuit components. And that's what this is going to be. So I'm going to relocate this one somewhere over here, and we're going to have another one somewhere over here, and we're going to be replacing this wire. So quite a bit to do yet. Quite a bit to do yet. All right, so now we have one battery, positive to negative, positive to negative, positive to negative. There we go. I've just created one battery pack. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. Now before I close all of this up, the next phase is we're going to need to, of course, configure and add our BMSs. Okay, not bad at all. So negative, positives. That's the end terminals of the battery packs. The rest is just all interconnects to keep them working together. Okay. So I'm going to turn you off for a little bit. I'm going to take a little break. And then when we get back to it, we're going to start configuring BMSs so that we have functioning batteries, and we're also going to be adding up the bus bars. I need to remove a couple of things out of the wall here first, get them out of the way so we can do the new layout. All right, friends, we'll see you in a short bit. So that's what I've got for you on setting up the batteries for the new array. Now, in the next video, what we're going to be doing is installing the BMS, including talking about some of the tools and the techniques involved in doing all that. If you like this content, go ahead and mash that like button below. If you want to see more of this content and you want to see a notification when this new content arrives, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you know other people who would like to see this, go ahead and feel free to share with them. Thanks very much for watching. I'm the Frugal Gunny, and I've got zero tolerance for evil. Take care of yourselves, friends.